Ako si Rosita Dalaga, nagpuyo sa Buenos Aires, Carmen, Bohol. Nanawagan ko sa akong mga anak na atuwa sa Manila, sa Bicol, sa kung saan sila karon. Na di lang sila magbalaka sa amo kay bisan ka nang nagugamay mo balay. Safety ra may
Saan kayo nakatira kung magsira yung bahay niyo?
sa ilalim lang lamisa.
Ma, okay ra ko diri pero ulit na ko sa Bohol. Sana okay kayo. Kasi hindi kita may alam kung ano nangyari sa inyo dyan. Kasi
Hindi makontak.
hindi makontak eh. Walang signal, sir. Baka hirap talaga. Ilang araw na. Hindi natin alam. May kinakain pa ba yung pamilya natin doon?
You heard just a few of our kababayans in Bohol and Cebu calling out to their loved ones as communication lines have yet to be restored in several areas battered by Typhoon Odette.
The destruction is so wide that a number of local governments already declared a state of calamity. Fatalities have also topped 300, with more expected to be reported in the coming days. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Hall.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with Cebu City, where scarcity in resources is getting more and more pronounced. Residents have to endure long lines just to get water and gas.
While others are more than willing to wait in queue just to get a ticket out of the province. And for updates, we have Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from Cebu City. Mon, kamusta ang sitwasyon dyan sa Cebu?
Robbie, Gretchen, there are queues everywhere here in Cebu City, from gas stations, water refilling stations, and even in the pier. Somehow, this is now the norm after Typhoon Odette's destruction left resources scarce. Meanwhile, over in Mandaue City, we have talked to two families who are still grieving right now after losing loved ones when a wall crashed during the onslaught. The company who owns the building promised to shoulder the funeral costs of the casualties, as well as the treatment of those who were injured. In other parts of the region, like in Cebu City, motorists have to queue for more than an hour to gas up. Meanwhile, in Osmeña Highway, people have gathered in a well for free water supply. And in the pier, long lines of passengers surround the area as they try to secure tickets out of town. Problem is, operations are still limited due to damaged vessels. Different electric companies now are doubling their efforts, putting the posts back up to restore the power supply in the area. There's also the continuous clearing operations in the province's major cities. Robbie, Gretchen.
Maraming salamat, Mon Gualvez. And of course, it's not just Cebu. A wide area of Bohol was also devastated by Typhoon Odette. To give us an update on the situation there, we have Bohol's Governor, Arthur Yap, on the line. Governor Yap, welcome to The Big Story.
Salamat, Robbie. Salamat, Gretchen. Thank you for having me tonight.
Governor Yap, we are seeing really devastating images from your province. Kamusta po dyan ang sitwasyon?
It's really bad. No? This is a province that had to sustain 200 kilometer per hour winds. And the radius of the typhoon was so big, 450 kilometers, that it enveloped the entire island as it entered Ubay, Pitogo, and exiting out in the north towards Cebu. So the entire province was really devastated. What has been the impact? Because all the transmission lines are down and the electrical connection to Leyte was affected, then we have no power. And when we have no power, we also have no water. And what has been the impact of that? Everybody has been buying generators. And when they bought generators right now, it also made a sudden increased demand for fuel. And the fuel companies are still coping in trying to deliver the fuel. So we're lacking in food, we're lacking in water. So it's really, really sad, and we're doing the best that we can. We packed so far, we've distributed about 21,000 food packs, and 16,000 bottles of water have been distributed. But what does 21,000 food packs mean when we are an island province of 375,000 families? No? Today, I spent my time in the northern municipalities, in the northern barangays of Bohol, because the island barangays are there, about 65. And there, Robbie, Gretchen, that's really, really sad, because you have island barangays in northern Bohol, which have about 100,000 residents. And these are 100,000 residents with no bangkas and no fishing nets and fishing gears. So wala silang livelihood. They don't have food, and they don't have water, because their water comes from mainland Bohol, and there's no water there because there's no electricity.
Hey,
So
Governor
we will
Yap.
also distribute.
Opo, Governor Yap, this is, it really sounds like hindi nyo alam kung anong uunahin. But speaking about, as you said, trying to make the best with the limited that you have, you're talking about having to build infrastructure first, electricity, telecommunications, water, and so on. It obviously is not just up to you. What about help from the national government, or for that matter from the private sector all over? Kung sino man ang gusto tumulong o kung sino man kailangan tumulong, nakakaabot po ba sa inyo?
You know, private sector is trying to help, and sa totoo lang, dumarating, because dun sa Facebook page ko, yung RTF Facebook page, yung Provincial Government Facebook page, the details are there on how to ship. Cebu Pacific, Philippine Airlines, and Air Asia are all flying Mercy flights. The Philippine Navy, the Philippine Coast Guard, all the information is there. What I feel that we should be working on more would be national government support. Like for example, if you go around Bohol ngayon, sabi mo, Robbie, hindi natin alam kung anong uunahin. Alam namin kung anong uunahin. Let us first clear all the roadways. And for that, the DPWH must act. They have private contractors also. But hindi sila patulungin kasi yung national highways nabagsakan ng mga concrete transmission posts. Eh di, hindi naman natin kayang i-chainsaw yun. No? So kung gumalaw lang yung DPWH, ilang araw na kaming humihingi ng tulong sa kanila at saka yung mga private contractors, why don't we move down the electric post so that we can have that free flow of traffic? Right now, hindi natin mamadali yung NGCP at saka yung mga transmission distributors. So, anong next na pwede natin unahin? Sana yung mga generators. We're trying to buy, wala kaming mahanap. So yung mga generators, kung masupplyan lang natin yung mga water refilling stations, gagana yun. And then at least we're gonna have water, no? Humingi kami ng tulong sa Meralco and maybe some of the other utility companies and LGUs in Manila. Padala kayo ng boom truck dito. Dahil kung may mga boom trucks dito, makakatulong yun sa clearing at saka sa pag-aayos ng mga poste for transmission lines. So kung makonect na ng NGCP yung kuryente dun sa Leyte, then at least magkakakuryente na yung, at least yung distribution lines will be ready. For food packs, Robbie, Gretchen, we have to prioritize. While we're working on all of these bigger ticket items, kailangan yung pagkain at saka yung tubig. Deliver lang tayo ng deliver ngayon. Okay. Hinihintay ko pa yung commitment ng DSWD. It's already day 5. And right now, I'm looking at 6,000 food packs. And I'm still waiting for the commitment to help. I'm down to my...
Yap, I mean, if I could just, could I just interrupt you there? What does that mean, that you're still waiting for commitment? I mean, so this is not a logistical problem? Is it a political problem? Is it a matter of protocols? What does that mean that pati yung commitment kailangan pang antayin?
Alam mo, I think it's not a issue of a political problem or a commitment, because the president was here 2 days ago. Last Sunday, pumunta na si presidente dito. Nag-iwan na siya ng amount. Sinabi na niya. I think it's really a logistical problem on the part of the DSWD na hindi nila may pasok for one reason or another. A measly 35,000 food packs was committed, and right now they're saying that 17,500 will still arrive 2 days from now. So sabi ko, what's the problem? Sabi nila, there seems to be a logistical issue.
Okay.
So sinabi ko, bakit, those are, Robbie, those are AIC's funds, no? They can just download it to the provincial government. We have protocols for that. Kami nang bibili. We've got hundreds of volunteers here. We've got warehouses and jeeps that are ready to pack this food. So ibaba nyo na lang yung pondo sa provincial government. We will now pack the food and start distributing it.
Okay.
The Coast Guard is here. The Navy is here. The Philippine Air Force is here. The volunteers are here. Wala lang pagkain. Walang food pack. Walang tubig. Kami, we've already finished all our funds because of COVID. Inubos na namin yung 30. Our last 30 million. Robbie, I'm willing to be audited on this. Gretchen, whatever I'm saying here right now,
Okay.
let the COA come and audit whether we have the
Sige
funds
pa.
or not. No? And we
Okay.
don't have the funds. And we need the national government to step in right now.
Sige pa. Governor Yap, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But we will continue to talk about Bohol and other areas affected by Odette later on the Chief. Samantala po, maraming salamat po, Governor Yap. Figures describing just how wide Typhoon Odette's trail of destruction is just keeps changing and rising. Based on the latest report of the NDRRMC, a total of 156 people were reported dead, 37 missing, 274 more injured due to Typhoon Odette. But the Philippine National Police has a worse tally. They've accounted for 375 deaths. 56 are in their missing list, 500 were injured. Infrastructure damage has also risen to more than 225 million pesos. That's according to the NDRRMC. This would include government facilities, bridges, and flood control infrastructure. The agency has also tallied agricultural damage at 162.8 million pesos. The Agriculture Department, however, is pegging losses at 525 million pesos. They expect that to rise even further.
These are the other big stories tonight. In order to speed up funding for rescue, relief, and recovery efforts, several areas across Visayas and Mindanao have declared a state of calamity. As the Christmas festivities roll in, the World Health Organization cautions against gatherings, saying an event canceled is better than a life canceled. And with power and communication lines still down, some Nagat residents go old school as they write letters to touch base with their loved ones. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho.
Amid the trail of death and destruction left by Typhoon Odette in the Philippines, Pag-asa insists that they gave enough warning on the strength of Odette.
But as provinces strive to recover, Pag-asa has already reported or spotted another low-pressure area near the Philippine area of responsibility. Marian Enriquez has the details.
Thousands of houses were destroyed. Hundreds of lives were taken. These were some of the images of devastation brought by Typhoon Odette that wreaked havoc in some parts of the Visayas and Mindanao. Pag-asa stood firm that they gave enough warning about Typhoon Odette.
Linggo pa lang nagpalabas na tayo ng Tropical Cyclone Advisory. Nasa labas pa ito ng ating air responsibility. Patuloy nga nating inuulit-ulit sa ating mga kababayan yung possible scenario bago pa man din maglandfall yung bagyong si Odette dito nga sa eastern section ng Visayas and Mindanao area.
Pag-asa senior weather specialist Chris Perez said Typhoon Odette recorded maximum sustained winds of 195 kilometers per hour and gustiness of 270 kilometers per hour. With this strength, it is normally expected to bring destructive winds and torrential rain, especially in areas where the center of the typhoon passes.
Most of the areas na apektuhan, lalong-lalo po sa rural areas, yung mga struktura po doon, normally may kaklasify natin sa mga high-risk structures, mga struktura na gawa sa mga magagaan na materyales.
For UP Resilience Institute Executive Director and UP NOAA Center Director Mahar Lagmay, Typhoon Odette is one of the strongest tropical cyclones that entered the country this year.
Kasi pag naglalaan po, lumihina. Pero pag nagpupunta sa dagat, lumalakas siya ulit. So ibig sabihin, yung taglay niyang lakas ay na-maintain niya all the way from the eastern part of the Philippines all the way to Palawan.
Lagmay also noted that compared to Typhoon Rolly that hit the country last year, Typhoon Odette had sustained its wind strength.
Itong bagyong Odette, maglalandfall, lalakas ulit dahil sa ng tubig. Kaya yung lakas na yon, maraming sinilang bahay.
Pag-asa said they are now monitoring another low-pressure area that may enter the Philippine area of responsibility this week. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
In order to have better access to calamity response funds, several local governments have declared a state of calamity. This will include Cebu Province, Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu City, Bohol, and Guimaras. Other areas under states of calamity are Butuan City, Southern Leyte, Negros Occidental, and Jose Panganiban in Camarines Norte. The declaration means that these areas can now impose price caps on commodities. LGUs can also require authorities to monitor profiteering and hoarding of supplies. The Information and Communications Department and several telco companies are aiming to fully restore communication lines and services in Odette-devastated areas. But in order to do that, the DICT says they have to prioritize restoring power lines first, as communication lines, of course, will depend on that. The DICT adds that some fiber backbones that are the primary source of signals were hit during the typhoon's onslaught. They says they will try their best to restore it by year-end. PLDT and Smart, meanwhile, said in a statement that 98% of their wireless services are now back in Mindanao. 86% has been restored in the Visayas as of Tuesday. Both have also set up free calls and charging stations across the most hit areas of Odette.
The World Health Organization is calling on Filipinos to hold off on Christmas celebrations for now as the threat of the Omicron variant becomes more and more real. Greg Gregorio with the story.
With 3 days left before Christmas, Filipino families are expected to reunite for some merrymaking. However, the World Health Organization is appealing for everyone to pause celebrations for now. This over the growing threat of the Omicron variant across many countries.
There is now consistent evidence that Omicron is spreading significantly faster than the Delta variant. An event cancelled is better than a life cancelled.
WHO data says Omicron has now been detected in 89 countries and is already the dominant variant in South Africa, where it was first detected. They say there's also a possibility that it might also become the dominant variant in the European region in 2 months. More than 62,000 cases have been recorded so far. America is already seeing a surge in Omicron cases. One positive with the new variant died. In Singapore, 71 cases of the new variant have been detected. Meanwhile, here in the Philippines, 3 Omicron positive cases have been detected. All are international travelers. But Okta Research Group says there's still no room for complacency.
We have to make sure our borders are secure. And it doesn't have to be a travel ban. We just have to be strict with the implementation of the quarantine.
Okta added that the country's transmission risk remains low. There's also no indication yet of a local transmission of the Omicron variant.
Maybe it will not be as severe as the Delta surge or the Alpha Beta surge, but we'll still have an increase in the number of cases.
The Philippine College of Physicians highlighted, meanwhile, the importance of complying with minimum public health standards. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Typhoon Odette hit provinces like Siargao, Bohol, Surigao del Norte, and the Nagat Islands may have to go powerless until the end of 2021. The Energy Department says that they have yet to finish their general assessment as some areas are still inaccessible. 22 of 95 transmission lines are not yet restored in Bohol, Leyte, Samar, and Negros. In line with this, Meralco has extended assistance to expedite the electricity restoration. The power distributor has sent an advance party in Cebu to help assess damages. 50 engineers and linemen will be deployed, 25 of whom are already in Cebu. They also got in touch with the Philippine Navy and PLDT for the transport of additional personnel, 15 vehicles, 11 generator sets, and heavy equipment. Meralco Power Gen and Global Business Power Corporation will be providing 20,000 liters of diesel to fuel generator sets of PLDT and Smart. Today, many of our kababayans in the provinces hit by Typhoon Odette have no food, they have no water, they have lost their homes, some have lost loved ones. Let's make them feel the spirit of Filipino bayanihan. You can give to them through the account details being flashed on your screen. Let's make them feel that through this pandemic, through this devastation, tuloy ang bayanihan, kaya tuloy pa rin ang Pasko.
Time for another quick break. More of the big stories when we return. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Hall.
I'm Robbie Alampay. Turned into a temporary shelter, evacuees themselves witnessed horrific scenes of how Siargao Sports and Tourism Complex was turned to rubble.
This after the once world-class complex was ripped apart following Typhoon Odette's onslaught. Here is my report. Residents and tourists rushed to the Siargao Sports Complex gymnasium to find shelter from Typhoon Odette on Thursday. But their supposed place of refuge almost cost them their lives. In this video, the evacuees were pushed to one corner, and what followed next was like a scene from a Hollywood disaster movie. The strong winds ripped the roof open. Kirby Abejaron, who took the video, said he thought he met his end.
Wala talaga akong ID dala. Pag namatay ako dito, hindi ako makikilala agad kasi wala akong identification. Yun yung iniisip ko. Doon na talaga yung trigger yung pagkatao kung kailangan ko mag-survive.
Kirby and others were packed in a small stockroom to avoid the debris.
Ako na lang yung pumatong sa bangko, tapos sinabi ko yung dapat gawin. Ang sabi ko sa kanila na lahat ng bangko ilabas nyo. Pagbayanihan natin para may makapasok pang iba.
Other tourists like Mike and Francis, meanwhile, used tables to cover themselves against the wind.
I was with my wife Brenda, so I was holding her. Then I just said, close your eyes and then stay low.
Francis even got injured in the process.
It was a piece of window was like stuck to my elbow, and then like we pulled it out, and there was an old lady who gave me a napkin. I sucked up all the blood. I mean, like, you take everything what you have.
When the situation calmed down, Kirby and his friends walked for hours to rent a boat to go back to their hometown in General Santos. He said they had to bid to take a ride.
Oo,
so magkano yung binayad nyo dun sa bangka ninyo para makauwi?
50,000 po yata.
Ilan kayo sa ganon?
22, 23, 24. 25 po kami lahat.
According to Communications Secretary Martin Andanar, who was on the ground on Monday, transportation fees definitely increase. There are also reports of looting due to scarcity of food and drinking water.
Mas lalo pang bilisan yung or damihan pa yung eroplano na pwedeng ibigay or ipahiram ng Philippine Air Force at Philippine Navy yung barko dahil ayaw nating magutom yung ating mga kababayan.
Despite the life-threatening experience of Kirby and his group, they still want to return to Siargao to help the island rebuild.
Babalik kami ng Siargao para makita namin yung pagbangon talaga ng Siargao. Kasi na-attach kami sa lugar eh. Parang may naiwan kami doon.
Gretchen Ho, We Are One News.
Many areas in Visayas and Mindanao are still left with no mobile signals or internet, leaving many worried for the safety of their loved ones.
But some typhoon survivors in the Nagat Island still found a way to communicate with their loved ones. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to this story.
My dearest sister, please know that our family are all fine, and we are happy to be alive after Odette. Our houses are roofless, but we are not hopeless. This was the letter of Aini Antonio Jimeno, a survivor of Typhoon Odette in Dinagat Island, to her sister Janet Antonio Viesca of Davao City. 5 days since Odette carved a wide swath of destruction, thousands of families still have no idea of the fate of their relatives and friends in southern Visayas and eastern Mindanao. With power and communications down, people are finding creative ways to tell relatives and friends that they are okay. Janet saw her sister's letter posted on the Facebook page of Dinagat Governor Kaka Bag-ao.
Naiyak ako talaga. I really cried kasi unang-una yung handwritten kasi eh. So makikita mo na she was able to write that note, so she's okay.
With her province cut off from the rest of the country, Bag-ao started collecting letters from Dinagat residents to post in her FB page whenever she gets a signal when traveling to other provinces. For this, they coined the term letters from Dinagat.
After I got a message from my sister, so partially relieved. Pero not, until I get to see them in flesh, doon po ako fully marirevive.
On the other hand, Rina Donque still hasn't heard from her cousin, Mary Jane Durigfat, who was visiting the Nagat Island when the storm hit.
Dahil po siguro sa walang kuryente, hindi sila makapag-charge, kaya hindi sila nakapag-contact sa amin. Ganun po yung nasa isip.
To help look for her, Durigfat's employer, Jem Fernando, turned to social media for crowdsourcing on Facebook with the hashtag #FindYayaJane.
Kasi po nung baby pa lang sila, siya na po yung nag-aalaga.
Pag kasi wala ka doon, hindi mo alam yung nangyayari. Lahat ng senaryo maiisip mo eh. I've been there. There is hope. Manalangin tayo. Let us pray to God na ma-protect sila, na ma-protect yung mga victims.
Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
4 days left before Christmas, tuloy ang Pasko, mga kapatid. And Robbie, sa storya na yon, kita natin, nothing beats the classic pen and paper. Kaya naman ang pasalubong ko para sa'yo. Ito, galing sa eskwelahan ko.
Ayun.
Diba? Notebook.
Yan.
Notebook.
Hindi basta-bastang eskwelahan yan, kaya hindi basta-bastang notebook yan.
Oo, para sa'yo. Mapanakita na tayo.
But really, we all know we're privileged here being in the media and communication sector. Napakalaking bagay ngayon. I mean, a lot of the networks right now, and even our own network, that's all we're doing. We're just trying to pass on word kung sinong okay, kung sinong lumalaban pa, buhay pa. So, paabot din po natin ang tulong natin sa mga nangangailangan.
That's right. Let's do what we can to help and share information and make sure everybody gets to spend Christmas in some way, one way or the other. Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channel 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.
Tuloy pa rin na Pasko ng Pinoy kahit ano pa mang pasakit sa atin dumalaki. Pag-ibig sa ating puso ay mamamalagi na para bang ngiti dito sa ating labi.
Basta ating mga puso ay magkakaritmo, magkasalit magkarama, yan lang ang hiling ko. Asahan mong tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, maligayang bayani.